A Study in Scarlet, Chapter 1. In 1878, I became a doctor. Then I went to India to join the British Army. Soon after I arrived, a war started in Afghanistan. I joined my regiment, but I had terrible luck. In a big battle, a bullet hit my shoulder. It broke my bone and hurt me badly. My brave helper, Murray, put me on a horse and saved my life. I went to a big hospital. I was very weak and sick. Later, I got another bad illness called enteric fever. I almost died. The doctors decided to send me back to England on a ship because I was so thin and sick. I landed in England. I had no family there, so I was alone. The government gave me a little money every day, but it was not much. I went to London. I stayed in a hotel, but it was expensive, and I spent too much money. Soon, I realized I had a problem. I needed to find a cheaper place to live or leave the big city. The day I decided to leave the hotel, I saw an old friend named Stamford at a bar. I was very happy to see a friendly face. I invited him to have lunch with me. We took a carriage through the busy streets. Stamford looked at me and said, "Watson, you look so thin and brown. What happened?" I told him my sad story. Then I said, "Now I am looking for a cheap but comfortable room to rent." Stamford smiled. "That is interesting," he said. "You were the second person to tell me that today." "Who was the first?" I asked. "A guy working at the hospital laboratory," Stamford said. "He found some great rooms, but they are too expensive for him. He needs someone to share the rent." "Wow," I said. "If he wants a roommate, I am the perfect person. I don't want to live alone." Stamford looked at me in a strange way. "You don't know Sherlock Holmes yet," he said. "Maybe you will not like living with him all the time." "Why? Is he a bad person?" I asked. "Oh, no," Stamford said. "He is a good guy, but he has strange ideas. He loves science a lot." "Is he a medical student?" I asked. "No, I don't know what his job is," Stamford answered. "He knows a lot about the human body and chemistry, but he doesn't take normal university classes. He just studies strange things and knows things that surprise his teachers. He is hard to talk to, but sometimes he talks a lot. He's usually at the hospital laboratory. We can drive there after lunch." "Great idea," I said. As we drove to the hospital, Stamford warned me again. "Don't blame me if you two don't like each other," Stamford said. "I only see him sometimes in the lab. This rooming idea was your plan, not mine." "If we don't get along, I can just leave," I said. Then I looked at Stamford. "Are you worried about something? Is he angry or mean? Tell me the truth." Stamford laughed. "It is hard to explain. Holmes is too scientific. He is almost cold. I think he would give his friend a little bit of poison, not to be mean, but just to see what happens. But to be fair, he would probably take it himself, too. He just wants to know everything exactly." "That's not terrible," I said. "Yes, but sometimes it is too much," Stamford said. "One day I saw him hitting dead bodies in the hospital with a stick." "Hitting dead bodies?" I cried. "Yes, to see if bruises form after death. But here we are. You must see for yourself." We walked into the big hospital, up the cold stone stairs, and down a long hallway to the chemical laboratory. The room was large. There were many bottles everywhere. On the tables, there were scientific tools, glass tubes, and small blue flames. Only one student was in the room. He was working hard at a table. When he heard us, he jumped up happily. "I found it! I found it!" he shouted, running to us with a glass tube. "I found a chemical that changes color when it touches blood." He looked as happy as a man who found a gold mine. Stamford introduced us. "Dr. Watson, this is Mr. Sherlock Holmes." "How are you?" Holmes said nicely. He shook my hand very hard. Then he looked at me and said, "You have been in Afghanistan, I see." I was completely shocked. "How on earth do you know that?" I asked. "Never mind how I know," Holmes laughed. "Now look at this. Do you understand why my discovery is important?" "It is interesting for science," I said, "but is it useful in real life?" "Yes, it is very useful for the police," Holmes said excitedly. He grabbed my arm and pulled me to his table. "It is a perfect test for blood stains. Look." He pricked his finger with a sharp needle to get a drop of blood. He put the blood into a large jar of water. The water still looked completely clear. "The blood is mixed with a lot of water now," Holmes explained, "but watch." He threw some small white crystals and a few drops of clear liquid into the jar. Immediately, the water turned a dark brown color and brown dust fell to the bottom. Holmes clapped his hands like a happy child. "What do you think of that?" "It is a very good test," I said. "It is beautiful," Holmes cried. "The old tests were bad and did not work on old blood. My test works on new blood and old blood. If the police had this test before, many bad criminals would be in prison today." "The police always have this problem," Holmes continued. "A man is a suspect months after a crime. The police find brown stains on his clothes. Is it blood, mud, rust, or fruit juice? Before today, it was hard to know. Now we have the Sherlock Holmes test." His eyes were shining. He was very proud of himself. Stamford laughed. "You know every crime in history, Holmes. You should write a newspaper about old crimes." Holmes put a small bandage on his finger. He smiled at me and said, "I have to be careful because I work with dangerous poisons." I looked at his hands and saw many bandages and stains from strong chemicals. Then Stamford got to the point. "We came here for business," he said, sitting on a high stool. "My friend Watson needs a place to live. You want someone to share the rent, so I brought him to meet you." Holmes was very happy. "I found a great apartment on Baker Street," he said. "It is perfect for us. Do you mind the smell of tobacco smoke?" "I smoke tobacco myself," I answered. "Good. I also use chemicals and do experiments in the room. Is that okay?" "Yes, that is fine," I said. "What are my other bad habits?" Holmes thought for a moment. "Sometimes I get very sad and I do not talk for days. I am not angry at you, I am just quiet. Please leave me alone when I do that. Now, what are your bad habits? It is good to know the worst things about each other before we live together." I laughed. "I have a small dog," I said. "I hate loud noises because my health is bad from the war. I get up at strange times and I am very lazy." Holmes looked worried. "Is violin music a loud noise to you?" he asked. "It depends on how you play. Good violin music is wonderful, but bad music is terrible." "Oh, that is fine," Holmes said with a happy laugh. "I think we have a deal, if you like the rooms when you see them." "When can we see them?" I asked. "Come here tomorrow at 12 noon. We will go together and finish everything," Holmes answered. "Perfect. See you at noon exactly," I said, and we shook hands. Stamford and I left Holmes with his chemicals and walked toward my hotel. Suddenly, I stopped walking and turned to Stamford. "Wait," I asked. "How did he know that I came from Afghanistan?" Stamford smiled a mysterious smile. "That is his special skill," he said. "A lot of people want to know how he discovers things." "Oh, so it is a mystery?" I said, rubbing my hands together. "This is very exciting. Thank you for introducing me to him. It is always interesting to study people." "You must study him then," Stamford said as he said goodbye. "But he is very difficult to understand. I bet he will learn more about you than you learn about him. Goodbye." "Goodbye," I answered. I walked back to my hotel, thinking a lot about my interesting new friend. Chapter 2. We met the next day and looked at the rooms at number 221B Baker Street. The apartment had 2 comfortable bedrooms and a large, bright living room with 2 big windows. The price was very cheap when we divided it, so we agreed to take it immediately. That evening, I moved my things from the hotel. The next morning, Sherlock Holmes arrived with his boxes and bags. For a few days, we were busy unpacking our things. After that, we began to feel at home in our new apartment. Holmes was an easy roommate. He was quiet and had a regular routine. He usually went to bed before 10 at night, and he always ate breakfast and left before I woke up. Sometimes he worked hard all day, but other times he just lay on the sofa from morning to night, not moving or talking. He looked into the distance with blank eyes. As the weeks passed, I became very curious about him. Holmes looked very unique, and anyone would notice him. Height? He was over 6 feet tall, 183 centimeters. Body? He was extremely thin, so he looked even taller. Face? He had sharp, piercing eyes and a thin nose like a hawk. His square chin showed he was a strong-minded man. Hands? His hands always had ink and chemical stains on them, but he was very careful when he touched his delicate science tools. I had a very boring life because my health was bad. I could only go outside when the weather was warm and nice. I had no friends in London, so I spent my time trying to understand the mystery of Sherlock Holmes. Holmes did not study normal science or medicine, but he knew a lot of strange, specific things. Surprisingly, he also knew nothing about everyday subjects like history, politics, or philosophy. One day, I discovered that Holmes did not know that the Earth goes around the sun. I was completely shocked. "You look surprised," Holmes said, smiling. "But now that I know this fact, I will try to forget it." "To forget it?" I cried. "Yes," he explained. "I think a man's brain is like a small, empty attic, a room at the top of a house. You must choose what furniture to put inside it. A foolish person fills it with useless things. Then there is no space for the useful tools. A smart workman only keeps the tools he needs for his job, and he keeps them in perfect order." "But the solar system is important," I said. "Why does it matter to me? If we went around the moon instead of the sun, it would change nothing about my work." I wanted to guess what Holmes's job was. I took a pencil and wrote a list of everything he knew. The list looked like this. Sherlock Holmes. What he knows. 1. Literature, books, nothing. 2. Philosophy, nothing. 3. Astronomy, stars and planets, nothing. 4. Politics, very little. 5. Botany, plants, good with poisons and drugs, but knows nothing about gardening. 6. Geology, rocks and dirt, good. He can look at mud stains on his pants and tell you exactly which part of London the mud came from. 7. Chemistry, excellent. He knows a huge amount. 8. Anatomy, the human body, good, but he did not learn it in a normal school. 9. Crime stories, amazing. He knows every detail of every horror story from this century. 10. Music. He plays the violin very well. 11. Sports. He is an expert at boxing and sword fighting. 12. Law. He has a good understanding of British law. When I finished writing my list, I threw it into the fire because I was frustrated. I thought to myself, I cannot understand what this man's job is, even when I look at all his skills. I should just stop trying to guess. I mentioned before that he played the violin. He was very good, but he played in a strange way. I knew he could play difficult songs because he played some of my favorites when I asked him. However, when he was alone, he rarely played a real song. He usually sat back in his armchair in the evening, closed his eyes, and played random notes on the violin across his knee. Sometimes the music sounded sad, and sometimes it sounded happy.
The music clearly showed his feelings, but I did not know if it helped him think or if he just played for fun. These annoying solos might have made me angry, but he usually finished by playing my favorite songs to say sorry for testing my patience. During the first week, nobody visited us. I started to think that my roommate had no friends, just like me. But soon I saw that he knew many people from different parts of society. One regular visitor was a small, thin man with dark eyes named Mr. Lestrade. He came 3 or 4 times in 1 week. One morning, a fashionably dressed young woman visited and stayed for half an hour. That afternoon, an old, poorly dressed salesman arrived, followed by an untidy older woman. Another time, an old man with white hair came to talk, and later a railway worker in his uniform visited. Whenever these strange people arrived, Sherlock Holmes asked to use the living room alone, and I went to my bedroom. He always said sorry for making me move. "I need to use this room for my work," he said, "and these people are my customers." Again, I wanted to ask him what his job was, but I felt too polite to force him to tell me.
On the 4th of March, I woke up earlier than usual. Sherlock Holmes was still eating his breakfast. The landlady knew I usually woke up late, so my table was not ready and my coffee was not made. I felt a bit angry, so I rang the bell to say I was ready. Then I picked up a magazine from the table to pass the time while Holmes ate his toast. One article had a pencil mark on the title, so I started to read it. The title was The Book of Life. The writer tried to show how much a careful person can learn just by watching everything around them. To me, the article seemed a bit silly but also clever. The writer said that by watching a person's face, eyes, or small movements, you can know their deepest thoughts. He claimed that you cannot lie to a person who is trained to watch and analyze. The writer's ideas seemed so amazing that people who did not understand his methods might think he was a magician. If a clever thinker sees just one drop of water, the writer said, they can guess that a giant ocean or a big waterfall like Niagara exists, even if they have never seen them. All of life is connected like a chain. If you see one part, you can understand the whole thing. The science of deduction and analysis is an art. You must study it for a long time, and a person cannot become perfect at it in just one lifetime. Before looking at the hardest parts, a beginner should start with simple things. When you meet a person, you should learn to see their history and their job immediately. This might seem like a silly game, but it teaches you exactly where to look and what to look for. A man's job is clearly shown by his fingernails, his coat sleeve, his boots, his trousers, and his expression. It is almost impossible for a smart person to miss all these clues. "What silly nonsense!" I shouted, and I put the magazine down heavily on the table. "I have never read such rubbish in my life." "What is it?" Sherlock Holmes asked. "This article," I said, pointing at it with my spoon as I sat down to eat breakfast. "I see that you read it because you marked it. It is well written, but it makes me angry. It is written by some lazy person who just sits in a comfortable chair and creates nice ideas. It is not practical. I would like to see this writer get on a busy London subway train and try to guess the jobs of all the passengers. I bet $1,000 he would be wrong." "You would lose your money," Sherlock Holmes said quietly, "because I wrote that article myself." "You?" "Yes, I am very good at watching details and guessing facts. The ideas in that article seem impossible to you, but they are very practical. In fact, I earn my living with them." "How?" I asked. "Well, I have a special job. I think I am the only person in the world with this job. I am a consulting detective. In London, we have many government detectives and private detectives. When they have a difficult problem and make mistakes, they come to me. I look at all the clues, use my knowledge about past crimes, and help them find the answer. Most crimes are very similar. If you know everything about 1,000 crimes, it is easy to solve the next one. Mr. Lestrade is a famous detective. He got confused recently with a fake money case, so he came here for help." "And what about the other visitors?"
They are people sent by private agencies. They have problems and need answers. I listen to their stories, give my advice, and they pay me money. Do you mean, I said, that you can solve a hard problem without leaving your room, even when other detectives looked at everything and found nothing? Exactly. I am naturally good at it. Sometimes a case is more difficult. Then I have to run around and see things with my own eyes. I have a lot of special knowledge that helps me. The rules I wrote in that article are very useful to me. Watching details is completely natural for me. You were surprised when I met you for the first time and told you that you came from Afghanistan. Someone told you, of course.
No, nobody told me. I knew you came from Afghanistan. Because I do this all the time, my brain thought so fast that I found the answer instantly. But there were step-by-step reasons. My thoughts were, this man looks like a doctor, but he also looks like a military man. So he is an army doctor. He just came from a very hot country because his face is dark, but his wrists are white, so his skin is naturally fair. He looks tired and sick, so he had a hard time there. His left arm is hurt because he holds it in a stiff, strange way. Where can an English army doctor get hurt and have a hard time in a hot country? Afghanistan. The whole thought took less than 1 second. Then I told you that you came from Afghanistan, and you were shocked. It is very simple when you explain it, I smiled. You are like Dupin, the detective in Edgar Allan Poe's stories. I did not know that people like you existed in real life. Sherlock Holmes stood up and lit his pipe. You think you are giving me a nice compliment by comparing me to Dupin, he said. But in my opinion, Dupin was not very good. He stayed silent for 15 minutes and then guessed his friend's thoughts. That is just a showy trick. He was clever, but he was not as amazing as the writer imagined.
Have you read Gaboriau's books? I asked. Is his detective, Lecoq, a good detective to you? Sherlock Holmes laughed in an unkind way. Lecoq was a terrible detective who made too many mistakes, he said angrily. The only good thing about him was his energy. That book made me feel sick. The problem in the story was to find out the name of an unknown prisoner. I could have done it in 1 day. It took Lecoq about 6 months. Detectives should read that book only to learn what not to do. I felt upset because Holmes was being so rude about 2 characters I liked. I walked to the window and looked out at the busy street. This man might be very clever, I thought to myself, but he is definitely too proud of himself. There are no real crimes or clever criminals these days, Holmes said in a complaining voice. Why do I have a smart brain if I cannot use it for my job? I know I can be famous. No one in history has studied crime as much as I have. And what is the result? There are no crimes to solve. Today, criminals make stupid mistakes, and their reasons are so easy to see that even a basic police officer can understand them. I was still annoyed by his proud way of speaking, so I decided to change the subject. I wonder what that man is looking for, I asked. I pointed to a tall, strong man in plain clothes. He was walking slowly on the other side of the street, looking carefully at the house numbers. He held a large blue envelope in his hand and was clearly delivering a message. "You mean the retired sergeant from the Navy?" Sherlock Holmes said. He is just boasting, I thought to myself. He knows I cannot check if his guess is right.